Hello, hi everybody. Hopefully you're all well today. Good for you to join us and hopefully be in for a nice session about developing ourselves in our PMO roles. We're going to be sharing quite a bit. So for people that are wanting to go back and look at details and things like that, if you make sure that you are signed up as a member, just a free member, you'll be able to access the recordings afterwards and also the deck, so you can have a little bit of a look at it at your leisure. We've run this session before, and it's been asked if we can do it again. I suspect we'll be doing it quite a few times. There's quite a lot of interest around a PMO competency framework and being able to develop yourself. For people that are not aware, today's session is going to be based on the PMO Competency Framework, because that's how you're able to do a self-assessment. But it's not all we will be covering, because doing a self-assessment, it requires preparation, it requires a little bit of thought. And I'm going to take you through some of the things that you need to be thinking about as you think about, hopefully by the end of the session, be raring to go and wanting to do your own self-assessment in PMO. For people that are here on the session with us, you can see meeting chat. Please do drop in any questions that you might have as we go through the session. We're broadcasting this live too on YouTube. So if anybody has questions, we'll be putting those up afterwards. But before further ado, then let's have a look at what we're going to be covering today. It's about getting started in a PMO self-assessment. So I just want to talk about what people actually get out of a self-assessment before we get into the details and show you, how the specific PMO self-assessment works. We'll also be looking at what you will get out of it, but also where you need to be putting most of your energy if you're thinking about doing a self-assessment. And then, of course, I'll be showing you, how to actually do one. So, like I said, hopefully it will make you, raring to go and to have a go at doing your own self-assessment. Okay, so what people get out of self-assessments? Well, first of all, let's just get this clear about what a self-assessment is. And it is about doing a self-evaluation. So this is about taking time to think about who you are, what it is you've been doing in your PMO career, and also thinking a little bit more about, well, where do I want to potentially be going, in the future, and how this tool can help me do that. It's also about studying performance in order to make improvements. So actually the cycle in doing a self-assessment is very similar to any kind of quality assessment, where somebody wants to make improvements. And in order to be able to make improvements, you need to know whereabouts you are now in order to put your best efforts into the right places. So that's what self-assessment is. And again, in the very basics, it is about, how well you're doing at the moment. How do you know that you're doing well, and how can I get better? So a very simple assessment tool. And this self-assessment tool comes from, they use it quite a lot in education, learning and development areas. And again, this is exactly what the self-assessment for PMO people is all about. So why do people do them? Many different reasons, and it does really depend on who you are, where you are in your career right now, whether you've come to a crossroads, or whether actually everything's just feels perfectly fine at the moment. I just want to get a really good angle on where I might be stacking up against others within the PMO community. Other people use them to help make those improvements. And I think most people are probably aware that self-assessments can help identify skills gaps, that kind of thing. So again, it helps to be able to then maybe select training. So rather than just going, I've got a training budget, not quite sure what to do, actually a self-assessment can help direct where you might put your efforts. It also allows people to gain confidence, really, again, in what they're doing. One of the reasons why House of PMO created a PMO Competency Framework is that we always felt there was something missing in the whole, for PMO people specifically. Up until it became available, I think most PMO people probably would probably do the project manager one, which again is available through APM. PMI also have one, and what it allows you to do is just have an understanding of what is actually the requirement around the role. What should I be doing? And I think the PMO has always been that kind of a poorer relation to project managers in that respect. So what it's allowed people to do for the first time is to, this is all about my specific role. This is not about me being able to understand project management. This is about the whole PMO role. Yeah. So, again, it's allowed people to, when they understand, this is the wider marketplace, community, industry of PMO, this is what is deemed to be the kind of competencies that are required to do the role. And again, we said that for the PMO Competency Framework, which it's based on, also has it's based on 4 particular roles: so administrator, analyst, manager, and director. Which again, people like the fact that there is something that's closely aligned to what it is they do, and therefore, when they're doing an assessment, it makes sense. So those are some of the things that the reason why people are doing. What we've found since the launch of this, and more corporate members have been doing these with their teams, it also allows a kind of shared understanding amongst the team that may have not existed before, and creates, not only the ability to see what strengths and weaknesses there is within the team, it also allows them to, that when we talk about benefits management from a PMO point of view, this is what we're talking about, and these are the kind of competencies and key skills and knowledge and things that are expected. So that's the reason why is. But what does it mean for you? So it does mean that there's more ownership placed on you. A self-assessment does take time, to do. You're investing in yourself, and I also think, in this day and age, that where we're not necessarily wedded to one organization all our lives like they used to be generations ago. This is about you taking ownership for your own career, and the self-assessment is one way, that is very much about you taking ownership of your career in that respect. But also it means it is about thinking about your work and thinking about your experience quite deeply, and it does take time. And I think the key word there, even though it's quite small, is reflection. It does take reflection in order to be able to get the most out of a self-assessment. Now, when you look at self-assessments, in not just in this field, not just in project management, but across lots of other different professions, they all do self-assessments in various shapes and forms. And there is 4 areas that, in order for it to be successful, for it to work, there are 4 parts of it. So there is that commitment. There's got to be that commitment and interest from yourself in order to be able to, want to develop yourself, and therefore it changes the way you invest in doing your self-assessment and how truthfully you might do your self-assessment. It's also about, a self-assessment brings up communication and conversations. Certainly when you're working within a role today, working within a team, working with a specific manager, it is about, that doing a self-assessment will create conversation and will, give you a better footing perhaps with your managers when it comes to things like performance reviews, and it's in your day-to-day work. There is that key of preparation. You have got to give yourself the time. It is not a quick exercise. And also, finally, in order for a self-assessment to be worth something, there has to be evidence to back up the choices that you make when you're doing a self-assessment. So we'll come back to that, because we're going to be, going into a little bit more detail, especially around the things around preparation and evidence, and help you getting started. So let's just have a rewind to the PMO Competency Framework. If you're not already familiar with it, you can obviously have a look at the Outer PMO website and have a look at publications, you'll see it there. But very briefly, the PMO Competency Framework is where the self-assessment is set against. So the things that you're seeing on the screen are the competencies of which you can self-assess against. So you all recognise that there is administration in any role, not just PMO, not just in project management, in any role there's some administration. So there's an administration competency. If you're a PMO manager level or PMO director, there's a PMO management competency. And P3M delivery support and all those competencies that you're seeing underneath there are about the kind of roles that you perform when you are supporting project, program and portfolio. So those are all the common types that you would see and probably have to do within your role. And then we have another section which is called P3M enabling. The best way to describe this is if you were thinking about the whole role of PMO, we do support around the projects, programs and portfolios, but the PMO is also responsible for creating the ecosystem, the kind of environment in which projects and programs are being delivered. So that is things like putting in place the methods. That is things like, doing training workshops for new project managers, for example. There's also things that you'll probably recognize there in terms of things like the assurance and the governance frameworks and the tooling and that kind of thing. So those are the core competencies which exist in the self-assessment, which you'll be able to self-assess against. So with a self-assessment and a competency framework, certainly with the PMO one, we were always told you couldn't create a PMO competency framework, and the community proved everybody wrong, because actually you can, but it does vary because there are different contexts of PMO. So within the competency framework, you can self-assess against project, program, portfolio, and centre of excellence. And you can also self-assess against all of those, or just a couple of them, whichever context is mostly aligned to how you work and where you work, you'll be able to self-assess against. And just to note this, with the competency framework, it was created by the PMO community for the PMO community. So there were over 100 people got involved in the actual process. So it is very much created by people like you. What you also see is a proficiency levels. Now, proficiency levels are about trying to align where you are in terms of that competency. So foundation can be that you've got kind of like the basics and the fundamentals around that particular competency, or you may be intermediate, so you've been doing them for a while and you've got a bit more experience. You could be advanced, so you've been, doing the role for quite a long time, or been doing the role in various different companies and being able to get your proficiency, so the ability to do to carry out the competency, or to do that part of the role competently. You could be advanced, or indeed you might be an expert, because you have very much been dedicating your career for the last X amount of years and have built up great levels of knowledge, skills, behavior, and so on. So we'll show you how competencies work when we come to show you the actual competency self-assessment. Within the competency framework, there are also knowledge, skills and behaviors, because we know that when you're looking at a particular role or part of your role, like let's take benefits management, the ability to understand benefits management and to put in place various techniques or processes do not get done in isolation. They get done alongside the knowledge levels that you have, the skills and abilities that you may have, and the behaviors, so the how you choose to do things. So we can't ignore those. But again, within the competency framework and within the self-assessment, it is very much just a yes/no answer. And I'll show you again how that might work, how that differs to how you might score in terms of your competencies. How does a PMO self-assessment work for you? So how can they actually help in terms of the PMO career? We've got obviously a self-assessment against the standard, and we have put, that this is the standard that we're assessing against. It's been proofed by, people within the community and written by the community and very much, it's the it's the standard that exists at the moment within the PMO world. It also can help in terms of identifying your skills gap. It can help you to choose how you close those gaps. It allows you to benchmark yourself quite, informally, against others and against this particular, criteria that's set within the competency framework. And again, I'll show you how the different levels and things in terms of proficiency levels are set already, depending on the role that you're performing. And you can also find out from a self-assessment about what you might actually need if you're wanting to go on to the next level, not necessarily moving up in terms of career, but perhaps moving into a different context. So if you've been working predominantly in project and program and wanting to move more into portfolio level, again, it allows you to look at, well, what might I need if I'm going to go down that route? It can also help you understand what proficient, what competent actually looks like for your role. It also allows you to understand what the common languages and terms are that are used within PMO. Obviously can use it within your performance review, and it certainly does lead to better conversations in terms of, setting goals and, all of that kind of good stuff that you associate with performance reviews. And then the other last two bits, it certainly can help in terms of, getting you ready for promotion. And also if you are wanting help to create your CV, if you're looking to move on, it can certainly help with that too. So there's quite a lot in there, and hopefully you'll be able to see what we mean, and hopefully it'll whet your appetite and you'll want to actually have a go. So from a competency framework point of view, so when you do a self-assessment, this is just a really brief, look at what happens when you look at doing the self-assessment online. And I will show you that because I'm going to give you a demo of it too. So this particular person's PMO manager working at a portfolio level. And what you can see here is that there's a required level. So that's what we were saying before about there is a required level that's already been set within this PMO competency framework. And you can see that in terms of the assurance. So as a PMO manager working at a portfolio level, your assurance competency should really be at that advanced level. And this particular person is still just at the intermediate. So it's showing you the gap. So again, there's a lot of things that it can draw your attention to, but essentially that's one of the things that people like to be able to see is where are they against what's actually required within the role that they're doing today. And I think it's probably the first time that people working within PMO have been able to have that opportunity to be able to see that. But this is a second one. This is actually from a corporate membership, because what you're able to do with a corporate membership is that everybody within the team can do the assessment, and then the manager can see where their skills are lying across the team. So they can see very quickly where there may be gaps between the team competencies and, where they really ideally need to be, and where there might be some gaps that need plugging. So again, just to quickly, just to show you what it can do in terms of and why you should, and the skills gap thing is always one that people enjoy looking at. Incidentally, we have got a session coming up later on in February. I think it's the 23rd of Feb. We're doing a lunchtime session, 12 noon, again, about identifying skills gaps. You might want to check that out on the events calendar. So key points from the competency framework book is that we do it against 4 different roles. However, you can do a self-assessment against every single competency and every single context that exists in there. But most people just like to have a look at it from a role that is more closely aligned to what it is they do. There's a different context, so we can do an assessment against the context that we are most aligned to in terms of where we work in. We can look at progression, so we can look at what our current role is and maybe where we want to get in the future and how we stack up now against what's required in the future. We look at indicators, so indicators are things that allow us to try and understand where we might be within that particular competency, and we will show you very shortly in more detail about what those mean, because for me, when I first started getting involved with this project, it was like indicators, not quite sure what they are and how they work. So I'll show you that in more detail. There's a yes and a no about whether you have the knowledge, the skills and the behaviours that go or are expected around the PMO roles. And then, of course, there's the evidence. The evidence is the bits that's, you know, not only reflection on what it is that you've been doing within your career in order to do a self-assessment, but it's the gathering of evidence that also takes the time. So there's 4 main steps to doing a self-assessment. One is that you're selecting the role that you and the context in which you want to self-assess against. There is the reflection time that goes into thinking about this before you actually do the self-assessment. Then you thinking about the assessment and actually doing the assessment itself. And then there's that evidence gathering. So that is the process for a PMO self-assessment. So where do you put most of your energy? It's actually in the reflection bit. And I added this portion into our sessions about the self-assessment, because I think it's one of the things that many of us perhaps don't do, but a lot of other professions and professionals do embed this into their kind of career planning and their day-to-day work. So reflections, there's actually a few different theories about how to get the most out of reflection. So this one here from Gibbs, I'm just going to show you a couple and you can have a think about all of these. These are about helping you to think about your experiences. They're not necessarily something that you will do because you're going to do a self-assessment. These are things that actually you could be doing in your day-to-day or week-to-week activities. So many people like to do these kind of things at an end of a working week, so like on a Friday afternoon, or they like to do it on a Monday when they're thinking back about the week that they've just had before they go into the week. And it is about being able to think of some of the experiences that you're having and how you can really truly reflect on what it is you've done, how you could do it better, what might have gone wrong, all of those kind of things, and actually have some action plans in place. It's just an interesting one when we say, you know, to do a self-assessment and get the most out of it, we have to reflect on our own experiences. And I think, you know, it's just worth just taking just a couple of minutes out just to talk about reflection. And here's, you know, the Gibbs cycle is one of them. And the other one that's probably a little simpler is the integrated reflective cycle from Bassett, and a little bit more recent as well, where again, you know, you're thinking about the experiences that you're having having a reflection on the actions that you've taken. You take time to think about some of the theoretical stuff that could have helped, and then also some preparation when it's a continuous loop. So again, it's a one of those things that perhaps as professionals, and if hopefully you class yourself as a PMO professional, are you doing some of the you know, the practices that are the norm in other professional fields? So just want to think about. But what I was going to do is just have a quick about, well, how does this work then if we were going to use a competency framework, say, as an example? Well, here is a this is the indicators for a portfolio context, and it's the administration one. So essentially, an indicator gives you some ideas of what would be expected at those levels to therefore allow you to say, yeah, I look at through the foundation level ones and I pretty much, yeah, I can confidently state that, yeah, I'm very much got those sorted. Intermediate level, yeah, yeah, portfolio level working, yeah, as an administrator, yeah, I'm pretty much there too. The advanced one, you know, I don't really do many workshops as much as I would love to do. So let's have a look at that in terms of, you know, a piece of work or an experience that I would have as a PMO professional around doing the portfolio workshops. Now with this one, it's like, okay, so if I look at the experiences, so actually the upfront preparation that I've done for the last one that I did went well, but I think I lost control of the attendees. So this is that reflection piece and getting you to think about, well, why did you think? that your preparation went well, or why did you think that you were losing control? Yeah, so this is the using a particular PMO example within a reflective cycle. And actually what it's going to allow me to think about is that, you know what, I'm going to go and do a look at the theory side of it, which is I'm going to read up on some of this stuff around the facilitation techniques, certainly the bits around managing participants better. And then for thinking going forward, I think I'm going to add in a different type of exercise that I can utilize that will bring people back together again and allow me to regain some control. That's an example of how we might do some reflective practice. So again, the reflections help to do a self-assessment. So if you were doing these kind of reflective practices in your day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month, you'll already be in that mindset of being able to do a self-assessment quite easily. So let's have a look. So let's have a look at actually having a go. So I am going to share with you an actual self-assessment that we do using online. If you are a paid-up member of a House of PMO, you have access to an online version of the PMO Competency Framework self-assessment. If you don't, you can still do a self-assessment, but you can do it using the book because there's a form in the back. And you can do it just very simple. It's a paper and pen exercise. Of course, you don't get that kind of interactivity that will show you some skills gaps and things, but it does allow you to do it within the book. But what I wanted to show you is what is available for people that are actual paid members, and you'll be able to utilize this particular tool. So what you're seeing on screen is when you first come in. So it's just a short thing about getting you started. Now, what we're going to do is look at this particular PMO professional, and this person's called Geraldine, and you can see Geraldine's name up there. And we're going to have a look at my competency. So what you're looking at is a self-assessment that's been already carried out by Geraldine. What I'm going to do before we go into it, I'm just going to show you how we've set this up. Okay, so we've got here, this is Geraldine, and she is currently a PMO administrator. And Geraldine also wants to think about moving onwards and upwards. She wants to become a PMO analyst. And she'd like to do that working within a project environment, and perhaps maybe a program environment. So you can see here the tool allows you to choose where you want to do self-assessments. And then you've also got an aspirational role, which could be a few years out, but actually she wants to be able to see where we want to concentrate our efforts over the coming years in order to help her get to that level. So this bit here is the job profiles of what we're going to self-assess against. So that's how a lot of people like to do it, is doing it against a particular role. You can see here what happens in the tool. It then brings them up. Okay, so we're just going to stick with, she's a PMO administrator and she's working at a project level, and she wants to just do the self-assessment that is required of her against that particular role. Now, what you can see here in the main screens is that she's got some core competencies, and she can choose to do at least 2 from this list. Now, bearing in mind, this is an administrator level role, so all the competencies are not here. It's only the ones that this person at this level in their career and the role that they're doing are required to actually self-assess against. And then you can see we've got some knowledge and some skills, and there's some behaviors. And you can see that those are just a yes marking, which I said before was a yes, no, but we'll come to those in a second. So basically, Geraldine wants to do her self-assessment against that core competency of P3M administration. So we have a look at the guide. Now here we can see those indicators. Now here's the bits where you can see that actually when we look at, we want to be able to do a scoring of where we think we are in this administration level. Then the job level requirement for a P3M administrator project level is intermediate. Can you see that here? That's already been set. It's been set by the standard in the PMO Competency Framework. So what you're doing is assessing for yourself. But there's an indication there that tells you that this is the expectation to perform the role competently as an administrator at project level. You should be scoring around the intermediate level. So Geraldine's done her scoring, and actually she's quite confident she's actually at a more advanced level. She's going to score herself at an advanced level, and she can just literally disclose that. And that self-assessment is done for that particular role against there. But we said, this is about evidence. You've got to be able to show evidence that you've scored yourself around the advance. If you're going to be using this to not only, help yourself through choosing better training or working with your manager, it's got to be truthful. And then the evidence piece can be put in here. So Geraldine's actually put in here that actually she's at more at an advanced level because she's been doing an onboarding process for the last 12 months because there's been a lot of hires that have been coming into the organization. And, that for her has been a big part of her job. And a manager, because this is a corporate level, because when the corporate ones, you can have a different setup. But I'm just going to show you an individual one. She's put some evidence there, but also she can put that evidence and actually upload it and show this is the process documentation that I put together to help the onboarding process. Yeah. So again, she's evidencing things. So essentially, when you start to do a self-assessment, you're doing it for all of them. Yeah. So let's have a look at the change control one. So again, for an administrator level, it's only expected that you're at a foundation level for some of these core competencies. So if we look at the, let's choose the issue management one. So again, we've got a quick description, and then here we've got the indicators. Now, a little word about indicators. These are just examples. We know that there'll be other types of activities that you will be doing within your organization that will align with a foundation, an intermediate, an advanced, and an expert. Okay, these are just indicators. So indications of these are the kind of things that you would be doing at a foundation level. You could be reading through some of these things and thinking, actually, we don't do this kind of stuff, or we only do 3 of these out of the 6. That's fine, as long as you've got other examples that you would also incorporate within the foundation level. Yeah, because then you can utilize that when it comes to demonstrating your evidence. So the indications. So again, this is remember, this is a standard that's been put together by the PMO community, and this is how they, from their experiences, these are the kind of things that happen or are expected to happen in issue management when you are supporting a project as a PMO administrator. So for this one, Geraldine very much is, yes, I'm at a foundation level. I'm looking at the intermediate, and yeah, there is a couple of things, but there's only a couple, and I don't feel like I think I've got quite a bit to go here. And the key words are in this one, it's, if you look at the difference in the terminology, it's a following, it's acting, it's maintaining, whereas intermediate, it becomes a bit more proactive. It's delivering stuff, you're validating things, you're providing things. Yeah, so it becomes a different type of activity. And that's the difference here, is that it's in between the foundation and the intermediate. It's like, well, I'm not quite at that level yet. I've not been given that kind of responsibility within the issue management competency. So I'm going to just score it at foundation level and just keep it at that. Now, what we're seeing here is that you can, just do 2 of them. But actually, for this administrator level, we've got a little note here from the manager, and saying, actually, I think you need to look at this one as well, which is the reporting and insights one. Even though I'm not particularly, Geraldine's not chosen to do it, she's been asked by a manager to go back and have a look at this one and to be thinking about her reporting and insights and analysis type work. She has a read through this and thinks, yeah, I'm definitely at that I'm at that foundational level, and I'm just going to score it at that, and then think again about what the evidence might be to support that activity. So hopefully you get the general idea about what's happening with a self-assessment. To come in and do the self-assessment, the manual thing that I'm showing you now, you could literally just go down all of this and click, 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 click. It's a 2-minute job. The actual act of doing this self-assessment here, is a very quick job. but you can see where it's the reflection, it's the thinking about things, and it's the evidence, and it's the documentation to support it that really becomes the bit that takes the time. What you can also see here, as I said before, that with the applications, with the knowledge and the skills, they're all very, these are things that we've said that for an administrator at the project level, you need these bits of knowledge in place in order to be able to do the job competently. So it's very much a yes and no, and it's an evidence and a documentation thing. There is no necessarily a competency indicator level for this kind of stuff. You either feel like you've got the kind of applications and tools of the organizations that you need in order to be able to perform your role, or you don't. Yes, it's a very simple yes, no. But again, it comes back to being really open and honest with yourself. Certainly when it comes with things like the skills, is actually, am I really doing this kind of thing? Because it's only going to be you, but it's going to be fooling when it comes to looking at your things like your gaps and your skills gaps and things that you want to focus on. So Geraldine can do the self-assessment on the current role, but let's have a look at what happens when she switches to the PMO analyst one. So this is something that she wants to go to. You can start to see now it reveals all the other kind of competencies that are required at this level. So the things that weren't available to her to assess against when she was just looking at the administrator, suddenly it's opening up a whole load of new competencies for her to be looking at. And not only that, is also different knowledge. It opens up more skills, and it opens up more behaviors as well. So again, what this allows her to do is be able to see quite clearly where she might be right now. So this job level requirement is for this PMO analyst at a project level. And she can see quite clearly that, in order for me to be stepping up here, I'm going to have some gaps. So perhaps that helps the conversation in terms of where's my development going to be over the next 18 months. I want to be able to be, in a position to be working well as a PMO analyst. What do I need to start thinking about in order to be ready for that? And if you want to look really far out and look at the PMO manager role, we've got even more gaps, as you'd probably imagine. Yeah. So we can start to see straight away where the gaps are, for this particular individual. Now, the other option that's open for people is that they can do it all. So we get people saying, what about if I'm working both in a project and a program context, but I'm doing this role that is a little bit more, bit of an analyst role, bit of a manager role. Actually, what you can do when you first come into this is just do it all, which allows you to bring up every single competency within every single context and allows you to focus in. And you can do it like that as well. So you can do the entire thing too. So it gives you that option. So if you just go back to Geraldine then, in terms of the role that she's currently doing at the moment, we can look at where the gaps might be in terms of where she wants to get to. So in terms of a next, role around the reporting and insights, is perhaps wanting to get to this intermediate level. And the reason why I'm showing you that, because it has this option to do time traveling, which is really quite sweet. So let's just go back to the competency one. And let me show you how that might work. So here is her assessment, and we've just done one, dipped into it again today. Interestingly, when it comes to assessments, is how often do you do them? Most people probably think about, doing it a couple of times a year. Other people like to come in when they feel like they've done something, like a piece of work that's significant, that really does show that there's been some movement in your competency around a particular area, mainly because the evidence is still quite fresh in your mind and the documentation is there. It's all quite easy to do. So you can just dip into it and do it. And then what you're able to do is actually do a time travel. And what that means is it allows you to see the differences between. So this is a self-assessment level at the minute. And we've time travelled from August, from 2022 back in August. And it shows us the difference between the assessment then and the assessment today. So you're then able to, again, a really neat one to do with conversations with managers, this is how I've been doing over the last 12 months. This is how, the changes that I've made. And again, it's all evidence to support that. So again, it has a little bit more in it than it does, obviously, just doing a pen and paper exercise. So that is how, very briefly, you do a competency assessment, because then what it allows you to do is start to have a look at, well, what's some of the gaps then. So you can have a look at, we have filled out some of the competencies for these are the roles. Yeah, so there's the administrator one, and she's completed that by 82%. And that might stay at 82%, and I'll tell you the reason why in a second. And then we've got some of the basic spider diagrams that she'll be able to dip in and have a look at, and copy and cut and paste and all that kind of good stuff. So again, that's very simple pictures. Why might it only stay at 82%? It's because actually you don't have to do the scoring for every single competency, because your organisation and your type of PMO might mean that you don't do it. So if you look at the analyst level one, where we can see them all laid out, actually, you might find that our PMO doesn't do finance management, so we're not going to score ourselves on that because we don't do that. We might not do any supplier management because we're not that kind of PMO, and we never do that kind of thing. So you're not necessarily looking to complete it 100%. Okay, conscious that I've been talking for quite a lot, and if there's any questions, you can just drop them into the chat. We've only got just a few more moments, probably about another 10 minutes. If you'd like to just drop a question in, I'd be more than happy to pick that up. And as I said, the recording will be available and all the decks, so you can have a look at some of this stuff in a bit more detail as well. So this is, the self-assessment tool that we're using, and it's called CAMEA. Okay, so let's go back. Let's have a look at having an actual go and what we've covered off today. So we will go to our back to our presentation, and let's have a look. So we're using a tool called CAMEA. And that, again, becomes available for people that are paid members of House of PMO, and you get it as a membership benefit. So, you can take, advantage of using that kind of online tool, and allows you to do that assessment, which means that you can allows you to download things that you can share with managers. It allows you to, look at things like your gaps and where you might want to concentrate your gaps. It might allow you to, if you're printing out these are like the competencies that are required for my role. It can help in terms of discussions with not only managers, but within the team, so there are other things, that you're allowed to do with the self-assessment. So when you're getting your self-assessment with the House of PMO, there are a lot of things to help you do that. You've got a guide like this one, you've got user guides, got videos that help you with certain aspects of it. So there's a lot of support there for you. And you probably realize that when we looked at that competency framework online, all the things that you were reading in terms of the descriptions and the indicators, that's all coming directly from this, so in many ways, you can do the self-assessment without purchasing that book as well, because it's all there in the tool. Okay, so that's it for now. I think I've got a question from here is from Kevin. If I added documented evidence as company-specific details in, how secure is the site in terms of the compliance and things like that? Great question, Kevin. I don't know is my honest answer. And what do they say when you don't know an answer? I will go away and I will find that out. CAMEA, like I said, is a tool that is purely focused on competency framework and assessments from many organizations. So I'm assuming, I'm making an assumption that things will be right there, but it's a great question, Kevin. I will certainly be finding that one out and sharing that one with the community. And it's probably one that that we will include on the front page of that competency assessment as you saw us coming in. I'll probably put some, make sure there's some notes on there about compliance. So we will certainly make sure that gets updated. All right, thank you very much. So that is it. I hope it's given you, I think you'll have a go. Like I said, it's one of those tools that, has been made for you. You're working in PMO, it's to help you get the most out of your career. And, I think it's as what we've seen so far with people getting involved and taking it, it's been a real eye-opener for them, and something that has certainly been welcomed as a new tool for the PMO community. So please do take a look. And just before we leave, we've got more coming up as the House of PMO has events at least one a week. So there's one coming up next week, which is about better business cases. This is part of a new series that we're doing, which is diving into some of the most popular qualifications and training that would be helpful for PMO people. And we have one of the trainers from Better Business Cases giving us an overview of why that might be a good one for you. We've got House of Genius coming up, which is a brilliant interactive one. If you're not familiar with House of Genius or as a concept, it is about how you can share a problem with a community and get a load of answers back to help you. So that one's an evening session. And then actually we're in London with the British Computer Society, talking to groups of people that are getting into project management, not strictly about PMO, but there is some PMO stuff in there. And if you've got any friends or family or people that you know that are wanting to get into PMO and project management because it's such a brilliant career, why don't you let them know about that one as well? But if you do want to come along, you'll find us in London on the 22nd of Feb. That's it for now. Thank you very much. I hope to any questions that you'll have about doing a PMO competency framework, reach out to us. Make sure you join the House of PMO LinkedIn group. We're always there. Any questions? There's no question silly. We're just here to try and help you get the most out of it. So take care for now. Thanks you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.